First story. Police encountered supernatural horror. In a small desolate town, nestled deep within the heart of a dense forest, two police officers named Mark and Sarah were assigned the dreaded night duty shift. The locals had always spoken in hushed tones about the eerie happenings that occurred after the sun set, but the officers dismissed these stories as mere superstitions. Little did they know, their perception was about to change forever. On their first night patrolling the quiet streets, a cold chill permeated the air. As they rounded a corner, their flashlight beams caught something unusual in the distance, a dark, amorphous cloud-like figure creeping towards them. It moved with an unsettling fluidity, as if it was part of the very night itself. Mark and Sarah exchanged puzzled glances before deciding to investigate further. As they drew closer, they noticed that the figure wasn't casting any shadows and seemed to glide through solid objects like a spectre passing through walls. Their courage was tested when the dark mass drifted through a lamppost as if it was nothing more than a wisp of smoke. Goosebumps prickled on their skin as they felt a growing sense of unease. The officers retreated to their patrol car, their breaths coming out in shallow gasps. Mark started the engine and shifted into reverse, causing the car to inch backward. Miraculously, the shadowy entity halted its advance, seemingly pushed back by an invisible barrier. Relief washed over them briefly, but it was short-lived. As soon as they stopped the car, the figure resumed its inexorable approach. Frantic and unnerved, Mark and Sarah repeated the pattern a few times: move the car, the figure pauses, stop the car, the figure inches closer. The rhythm was surreal and disconcerting, like a perverse dance between the living and the ethereal. Their radio crackled to life with static, and Mark fumbled to respond, his voice shaky as he relayed their bizarre encounter to the dispatcher. But all they heard in return was an eerie silence, followed by the ominous sound of distant, ghostly whispers. Dawn finally broke, banishing the dark apparition and leaving Mark and Sarah shaken to their core. They reported the incident to their superiors, who attributed it to exhaustion and urged them to continue their patrols. That night, the cloud returned, the same insidious, formless entity that seemed to feed off their unease. This unsettling cycle repeated itself, night after night, each encounter amplifying their terror. As the days turned into a week, the officers' mental and physical exhaustion reached its peak. Sleep deprivation took its toll, and the constant encounters with the malevolent entity warped their perception of reality. They began to see fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures in their peripheral vision during daylight hours, and even in their dreams, the dark cloud haunted them. Mark and Sarah confided in each other, their bond forged through shared fear and desperation. They pondered the origin of this paranormal menace, delving into the town's history for answers. An old journal entry from decades ago described a similar phenomenon witnessed by a long-forgotten night patrol duo, ending with their mysterious disappearance. The officers' heartbeats quickened as they realized they were caught in a horrifying cycle that had plagued the town for generations. With the sun's first light, they reported the eerie happenings to their superiors once again, this time imploring for assistance. The police chief reluctantly agreed, arranging for a team of paranormal investigators to be dispatched to the town. The investigators, armed with advanced equipment, descended upon the area. Mark and Sarah were relieved to step aside, their dread-filled nights finally at an end. The investigators conducted thorough analyses of the town, revealing a sinister connection between the apparition and a long-forgotten tragedy. Decades ago, the cult had unleashed unspeakable horrors upon the town, causing a rift in the fabric of reality. The town had become a breeding ground for supernatural phenomena, and the dark cloud was a manifestation of the pain, fear, and malevolence that had festered there. With their findings, the investigators devised a complex ritual to seal the rift and banish the entity forever. Mark and Sarah watched with bated breath as the ritual unfolded, candles flickering and symbols drawn in chalk. The very air seemed to tremble as the ritual reached its climax, culminating in a blinding light that engulfed the town square. When the light finally subsided, the oppressive presence that had plagued the town for generations had dissipated. The air felt lighter, the darkness had receded, and a sense of tranquility settled over the once dreadful streets. Mark and Sarah, though scarred by their experiences, finally found solace in the knowledge that they had put an end to the cycle of horror. But even as they were moved to a new area, they couldn't shake off the memories of that fateful week. The nightmarish encounters with the malevolent cloud served as a haunting reminder that some horrors could never truly be forgotten. As weeks turned into a month, Mark and Sarah thought they had escaped the clutches of the malevolent cloud. Their new area was peaceful, and the horrors of their past seemed like distant nightmares. However, the past has a way of catching up, especially when it's rooted in the supernatural. One gloomy night, as they patrolled the quiet streets of their new town, a strange familiarity gripped them. A sense of unease settled in the pit of their stomachs, and the air grew thick with tension. Suddenly, Mark's radio crackled to life with the same static they had heard during their encounters with the dark cloud back in the forest town. Their hearts raced as they remembered the whispering voices and the cold grip of fear. A dark figure emerged in the distance, its amorphous shape bearing an uncanny resemblance to the one they had encountered before. Panic surged through them, threatening to paralyze their every move. Their instincts kicked in, and Mark floored the gas pedal, driving recklessly through the streets in an attempt to shake off the apparition. But it was no use. The figure maintained its pursuit, impervious to the car's speed. No matter where they turned, it was always there, an ominous reminder of the past they thought they had escaped. Exhausted and desperate, they abandoned their patrol car and fled on foot, seeking refuge in an abandoned building. Gasping for breath, they huddled together, their minds racing as they grappled with the realization that the nightmare had returned. The dark cloud encroached upon them, creeping through cracks in the walls and slithering along the floor. In a desperate bid for survival, Mark and Sarah drew their weapons and fired at the entity, their shots piercing the air with a cacophony of sound. To their horror, the bullets passed right through the cloud, leaving no mark or impact. It was as if they were shooting at the very fabric of the night itself. With every failed attempt to fend off the apparition, their fear deepened. They were trapped in a cycle of terror, haunted by an entity that seemed invulnerable to their efforts. Exhaustion and despair began to take their toll, their minds unraveling as the boundary between reality and nightmare blurred. As days turned into nights, Mark and Sarah's sanity hung by a thread. Sleep became an elusive luxury, their nights spent in a constant state of vigilance. The walls of the abandoned building seemed to close in on them, and the whispers that had once haunted their dreams grew louder, a constant reminder of the malevolent force that pursued them. In their darkest moments, a glimmer of hope emerged. They recalled the journal entry they had discovered back in the forest town, the one that spoke of a cult and a rift in reality. Perhaps there was a way to break the cycle, to uncover the truth and put an end to the entity's torment. With renewed determination, they embarked on a journey of research and investigation. Their quest led them to an ancient library hidden in the heart of the city, where dusty tomes spoke of forbidden knowledge and arcane rituals. Through countless nights of study, they pieced together the truth. The cult that had caused the rift in the forest town had also been responsible for summoning the malevolent cloud that haunted them. Armed with this revelation, Mark and Sarah delved deeper, discovering that the cult had left behind a series of clues that, when deciphered, could potentially seal the rift and banish the entity for good. The rituals were intricate, requiring a delicate balance of elements and a profound understanding of the supernatural. As they practiced the rituals, they felt a shift in the air, a subtle change that hinted at the possibility of success. With every symbol drawn, every incantation spoken, the entity's grip seemed to weaken. The whispers faded, and the dark cloud's presence became more tenuous. One final ritual remained, a culmination of their efforts. With trepidation and hope, Mark and Sarah performed the ancient rite, pouring all their determination and courage into the act. A blinding light enveloped them, and they felt a surge of energy, a force that emanated from deep within the earth itself. When the light finally faded, they found themselves standing in the midst of the forest town, the very place where their nightmare had begun. The dark cloud was nowhere to be seen. As they looked around, they realized that they were standing on the threshold of the rift, a tear in reality that had allowed the malevolent force to escape. With a sense of finality, they channeled the energy they had harnessed, closing the rift and sealing off the connection to the malevolent cloud. The forest town's streets fell silent, and a calm settled over the area, as if the very fabric of reality had been mended. Exhausted but triumphant, Mark and Sarah returned to their new town, the memories of their ordeal still fresh in their minds. The terror they had faced had changed them, leaving scars that would never truly heal. But they had also emerged stronger, having conquered a force that had plagued generations. As they resumed their patrols, they occasionally exchanged knowing glances, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared, a bond forged through the crucible of fear and survival. And though their nights were once again quiet, they knew that some horrors could never truly be forgotten, and that the darkness they had faced would forever linger in the corners of their minds. The second story. On a moonless night in a quiet, forgotten corner of the city, two police officers, Officer James and Officer Emily, were on their routine patrol. As they navigated the dimly lit streets, their keen eyes caught sight of a figure dressed in black, shouldering a hefty sack bag. The sinister aura of the night was amplified by this eerie sight, and a sense of unease crept over them. The figure halted in its tracks, seemingly aware of being observed. James and Emily exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding in unison. They approached cautiously, their flashlight beams illuminating the enigmatic stranger. The person's eyes gleamed with a malevolent glint as the light fell upon them, sending shivers down the officers' spines. In a desperate bid to unravel the mystery, James and Emily signaled their presence by flashing their torchlights. The person's reaction was swift, a fleeting, almost ghostly image in the night as they darted into an abandoned automobile repair shop nearby. A sense of urgency propelled the officers forward, curiosity mingled with the foreboding in their hearts. The metallic scent of rust and decay greeted them as they stepped into the dimly lit repair shop. The air was heavy with an unnatural silence, broken only by the creaking of metal and the whisper of the night breeze. As their flashlight beams swept across the interior, a gruesome tableau revealed itself. Splatters and streaks of blood adorned the walls and floor in grotesque patterns. Their breaths hitched, and a chill ran down their spines as they exchanged a glance that spoke volumes of their shared horror. The suffocating atmosphere weighed upon them, pressing their instincts into high gear. Pressing on, they followed the trail of crimson footprints, leading them deeper into the eerie darkness of the repair shop. Then, a surreal scene unfolded before their eyes. In a hidden chamber, a congregation of cloaked figures clad in total black stood in a sinister circle, their faces hidden in shadow. Their mouths moved in eerie unison, the rhythm of their chants echoing like a macabre chorus. The officers' hearts raced as they realized that they had stumbled upon something far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. Hiding in the shadows, James and Emily watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Their eyes widened in disbelief as the ritual continued, the chant growing in intensity. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the officers could feel the weight of malevolence that emanated from the ritualistic gathering. As the night wore on, the officers witnessed the unthinkable, a forbidden fusion of dark forces and eerie incantations. The figures seemed to draw power from the very darkness that enveloped them, their voices resonating with an unearthly energy. The realization struck them like a bolt of lightning. They were in the presence of something beyond human comprehension. A newfound determination blossomed within James and Emily. They knew that they had to report what they had witnessed, to shed light on the unspeakable horrors that unfolded in the heart of the night. When dawn finally broke, they emerged from their hiding place, racing to their station to file a detailed report of their encounter. The sun rose, casting a pallid light over the city, and the officers watched as their superiors initiated a search of the automobile repair shop. But to their astonishment, the blood-stained walls were now pristine, as if the horrors they had witnessed had never occurred. Their recounting of the chilling event seemed to fall on deaf ears, as if the night had erased all traces of the ritual. Frustration and unease gnawed at James and Emily. They knew, deep down, that what they had seen was no ordinary occurrence. The unsettling realization settled in. They had inadvertently stumbled upon a dark secret, a realm of malevolent forces that lurked just beyond the veil of their reality. As the days turned into weeks, the officers delved into research, determined to uncover the truth behind the ritual and its enigmatic participants. Their journey led them into the depths of forbidden texts and ancient legends, as they sought answers in the most unlikely of places. Their lives had become a precarious balance between their duty as police officers and their quest for understanding. Haunted by the memory of that fateful night, James and Emily were forever changed. The darkness that they had encountered had left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that there are realms beyond human comprehension, lurking just beyond the corners of reality. And as they continued their investigations, They couldn't shake the feeling that their search for answers might plunge them deeper into a world of terror and malevolence that defied all reason.